There we go. All right, everybody. It's my pleasure to welcome Samuel Scott, our speaker today. I discovered him writing the promotional column for The Drum, which is on a temporary hiatus. But that hiatus is not going to silence him in any way whatsoever. His Twitter feed is pure fire, students. It is a can't miss follow at Samuel J. Scott. And many a night when I can't sleep, I'm reading the post that he's putting there. His website says, Marketing Truth from an Expert Trade Journalist. He's been a director of marketing in the technical industry. He's one of the best journalists in the world writing today. And nothing scares marketers more than a neutral observer with nothing to sell. And this is what I have to add, that calls BS on their shady practices, lies, and just unethical way of doing business. Take it away, Samuel.
Well, thank you. Hello, everybody, students. This is my first time actually using Zoom, the platform itself. So it's an honor to do my first Zoom with all of you. And so I just want to elaborate a bit more just about my background so you know where I'm coming from. My first career, I was a journalist in Boston. And then I got laid off in 2007, 2008 during that economic crisis. And I was doing my MBA at the time. And I remembered, you know, I really liked those marketing courses. Why don't I give that a shot? So that's what I did. I actually moved to Israel. I'm a dual citizen. And I moved to Israel to join the startup nation, you know, the high-tech world, and here in Tel Aviv. And that's what I did. So I worked in marketing for years. My last job, I was the first director of marketing at a now global tech company. And so after that, I decided to go back to journalism in a way that used my marketing knowledge as well. So I pitched a column to The Drum, they loved it, and I've been writing there for 3 years now. So today, after journalism and marketing, I now use my two backgrounds to cover the marketing industry as a journalist, as a trade journalist, and I speak about it as well. That's my job now. Well, once this coronavirus goes away, hopefully. So that's my background. And I bring that up because I wanted to share a few stories with all of you, because I'm sure that you're feeling a bit worried, and you should be. I mean, I've been there myself. In 2002, I graduated from Boston University with a degree in journalism. And when I was in college, I had many internships. I was a full-time employee of the Boston Globe when I was a junior in college. And so I thought I was, you know, going to be this big journalist and it was going to go great. And then I graduated in January 2002, right after 9/11, the tech bubble burst. I don't know if you know this at the time, but some idiot was mailing anthrax in the mail to news outlets, so they weren't opening their mail. You know, I would be sending my CV to these news organizations, like, sorry, we're not opening mail right now. So it was a very, very tough time. And so what did I do? So I didn't have a job for, I'd say, about 2 or 3 months. Finally, I got a job. For a few months, I was a staff assistant secretary, as the executive director called it, of a nonprofit economic think tank at Suffolk University in Boston. At the time, I had no interest in economics. You know, I was just a staff assistant, you know, opening the mail after, you know, there's no more anthrax. And, you know, just doing all this stuff that really I had no interest in. But I did it because I didn't have a choice. You know, you do what you have to do sometimes to pay the bills. But I did find a job in journalism. My first job after graduation was as a staff reporter for the Boston Current. It was a weekly city paper that covered, you know, urban issues like urban development. I covered local city council and, you know, like local news. And that was my first job in journalism. And then, like I said, so then after I did my MBA studies, I lost my job in journalism. I moved to Israel. And, but, you know, Israel wasn't affected by the Great Recession that much, but it was still pretty bad. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say this now, but it's a story. After I lost my first job in the high-tech world in marketing, I had nothing for about 2 years. I did some consulting on the side. There are these platforms, I don't know if they're still around, but you can like get paid by the hour through these like self-employment platforms. I forget what they're called, but I got some money coming from that. But I was months behind on my rent. The landlord was going to kick me out. I was surviving off, I think, eating a couple eggs a day, like maybe some rice. It wasn't a good time. And this was in a country where the Great Recession didn't really hit that badly compared to Europe and America. But I persevered. I worked very hard, and I wound up working for an American agency, marketing agency, with an office in Tel Aviv, doing PR-based, publicity, some PR for high-tech companies here in Tel Aviv. So that was my first job in marketing here in Israel. Then I did some consulting after that, went in-house. Like I said, my last job was director of marketing at this now global tech company. So I've been through some tough times myself, but I feel like it made me, in the end, stronger. I won't admit, I was worried because, again, like 6 months behind on rent, what is my landlord going to do, eating rice and eggs? But, I survived. I got through it. And we don't know what's going to happen with the situation now. You read the news, the real news, and we see everything from projections that, once the virus is eradicated as much as possible, maybe the economy will jump right back up, because once everyone who, lost their jobs, maybe they'll get them back right away. Once people can go out again and, and work and go to companies and buy stuff. On the other hand, it could be very, very bad, the other end of the spectrum. We just don't know. But one thing you learn in life is that the two extremes usually never happen. It's always somewhere in the middle. So there'll be some pain. It should be pretty bad, but I don't think it's going to be, a catastrophe for, the next 10 years. I don't think we're all going to become cannibals. So I wouldn't be too worried. Again, in the short term, you might have to get a job you don't want. It might not even be in marketing. But, if you pay the bills, you have to pay the bills. But I'll go into that shortly. So just, don't get too worried. Take care of yourself, do self-care, eat healthy, don't develop any bad habits, trying to worry too much. Because this happens on average there is a recession once every 10 or 15 years on average. So I would just say try not to worry too much. Because if I got through what I went through, and today, again, until the coronavirus and after it's over, I fly around the world speaking at conferences about marketing and related topics. Usually 2 or 3 times a month, I fly somewhere in the world, give a speech, and give me a check. I fly back home here to Tel Aviv. It's so, in the span of probably 10 years, I went from, again, surviving off of eggs and rice, that's my cat, by the way, to being a global keynote speaker and columnist, because I worked my ass off, to be blunt. And I'm sure all of you are smart enough and driven enough where you can do the same. So I have all the faith in you, and try not to worry too much. Someone just entered the room, okay. Okay, gotcha. So basically, okay. So now I'm going to go into a few things that I would recommend that all of you do to get through this and, get through this, not just get through it, but thrive. And I'm gonna go into some tips I have for all of you. So first, now I'm gonna share. Okay, I hope you can see that. You can see that on the screen? Great, wonderful, okay. So this is the slide I created a few weeks ago, all about strategy. Now, in the marketing world, again, I don't know what you've been learning in your classes, so I hope I'm not contradicting anything, but a lot of the marketing world doesn't really understand what strategy is. I see so many terms bandied about, like, what is our Facebook strategy? What is our PPC strategy? What is our PR strategy? Those are not strategies. Those are Marcom tactics or Marcom channels. So first, I want to go through with you what is a real strategy and how it can apply to you. So first of all, a strategy comes down to three things: diagnosis, strategic guiding policy, and a tactical plan. And by the way, most marketers, when you read trade media outlets and blogs and whatever, they only discuss promotion, this little thing at the end. But I'll go into that in a second. So in any context, it could be a marketing context, it could be an overall business context, it could be even in your own personal lives. You always start with diagnosis. What is the problem or what is the opportunity? And so in the business world, you might do a SWOT analysis. You might think about what is your domain of action, where are you going to play and not play. You're going to do customer-facing research, and obviously you want to get your market intelligence. Because if you get the diagnosis of the problem or the opportunity wrong, if you identify the wrong problem or the wrong opportunity, nothing else will matter. So once you have your diagnosis, then you have to use all this information and really think about it to create a strategic guiding policy. And how you do that is you think about what are your sources of advantage. Again, with you personally, sources of advantage. You personally, or your company, or your marketing department. What are the opponent's disadvantages? If you do something, what will be the likely reactions? And you want to think about this in a way where it reduces complexity and ambiguity. Sorry, sometimes I mispronounce my English, it's been so long. So, and really boil down what you really need to do. Break it down into its most simplest form possible. Then once you have that, then you can think about your tactical plan. And in marketing specifically, you go into this, that goes into product, price, place, and promotion. The 4 Ps are just the tactics. And then under promotion, obviously you have Marcom mixes and media mixes, and that's all. I'm sure you already know that, so I won't go into that. Now, so what does this mean? Here's an example. Take, this example is from Mark Ritson, by the way. I always like to give due credit. Think about if you go to the doctor. You know, you've got a pain in your chest. Well, the doctor's going to diagnose what is the problem. Now, if he gets the diagnosis wrong, the wrong disease or something, then nothing else will matter. So you really hope he gets the diagnosis correct. And the guiding strategic policy might be one of two things. It might be medication or exercise, for example, or both. So your guiding strategic policy will be, we should do exercise, or we should do medication, or maybe both of them in some way. So once you know your guiding policy, then you want to think about the tactics. And the tactics in this example are, what medication should you take? How often should you take it? Should you mix it with other medications, or is that dangerous? So those are the tactics in this medical example. And if it's exercise, what exercises should you do? How many times a day? And so on and so forth. So that's a medical example of diagnosis, guiding policy, and tactical plan. Actually, if you go into the Jewish Bible, the story of David and Goliath is actually a story about strategy. Because think about it, David was going to fight Goliath, and Goliath, had the seeming advantage, this huge guy with a big sword. Nobody could beat him. And David was this, 16-year-old kid, like this weakling. And I don't remember the details, but, he was selected to go fight Goliath. So what did David do? He had to diagnose the problem, think of a guiding policy, and do a tactical plan. And what did he diagnose? Well, Goliath is this huge guy, and he's really strong. But David realized, but he can only hurt you if you get close to him. And David thought, well, what is my source of advantage? I know how to use a sling. And so he realized, so my tactical plan is I'm going to stay far away from Goliath where he can't touch me. Then I'm going to use my sling and fling in a rock at him, and bam, David beat him because he went through this strategic process. Listen, read the story again, and you'll see what I mean. So in your own lives, you can use this process to determine what you should do for yourself. What is your tactical plan? So you can diagnose, what is your source of advantage? Each of you individually. Are there certain marketing tactics, Marcom tactics or channels you're good at or not good at? Maybe you're a strategy person. Maybe you're more, you're a planner. Or maybe you're really good at numbers and you're good with budgets and analytics or whatnot. Again, what is your personal source of advantage? And how can you use that to promote yourself tactically to get a job, or to impress an HR person, or what should you highlight on your CV? Again, you can go through this process for yourselves individually. Now, so one thing I wanted to go over as well is that there have always been types of industries that are recession-proof, more or less. And I've got some examples here from the Great Recession in 2008 that might help you out, because you might want to focus your job searches on these specific industries. So I've got a list. Food industry, cookware and cooking, discount stores, IT, information technology, home and auto repair, healthcare, drug companies. These are all essential industries for the most part. Food, medicine, healthcare, home repairs. So these are industries where you might want to start your job search because they're hiring. And obviously there's also Zoom and everything as well. So one thing I like to do is to follow the money. Now in journalism, there's a phrase, it's all, follow the money. Because if you follow the money, you will find out what a politician really values or what he's going to do, who contributes to him or whatnot. Like, you follow the money in journalism, you'll find the truth. Now, in the business world, follow the money today to see where investors, the VC world, private equity, where are they putting their money now? If you've ever taken a finance course, one thing people always say is that you should go to cash when you think a recession might hit. But people with money, are putting their money in certain industries. Again, things that focus on remote work, like Zoom. So again, do the research. Read business publications and find out where people are putting their money today. Because the sooner you have that information, you can take advantage of that and act and go to that industry before anyone else does. So follow the money. See what the finance department is doing. And so one thing I can recommend is that, read the headlines, read the news, read social media feeds, find out what's going on, because you never know where a source of information or insight can appear. Because one thing that you want to do with strategy is you want to develop an insight. You want to, get all the information at hand, study it, let it roll around in your subconscious, go out for a run, let your brain just work on it. And sometimes an insight will appear out of nowhere. Here's an example. I'll give it to you free of charge. I read somewhere that, I don't remember where I found this, so I feel bad I can't give them credit, but I read this in some publication where there is a manufacturer of bidets in America. And they've always had a product and it's never been that popular. It costs like $10 or something. You attach it to your toilet seat and it creates an instant bidet. And I thought about that and I'm like, for $10, I could never have to buy toilet paper again. Now think about that right now in this context. If I were working for that company, I would advertise the hell out of that. $10, well, so that's one example of an insight where sometimes, ideas just come out of nowhere and you might see an opportunity or a company that has the potential to do very well right now, but maybe they don't know it. Maybe they need you to tell them. So like I said, if I were this bidet company, I would advertise a lot, because advertising is still important in a recession, and I will show you why. Now, I don't know if you've taken any accounting courses, but in the accounting and finance world, they consider marketing to be an expense. Whereas when we look at advertising specifically as an investment, but the accounting world must look at it as an expense because the outcomes are not predictable. These are accounting regulations and laws that they must follow. So because we can't tell them, if we spend $1 million on advertising, we can't tell accounting, I can guarantee that we'll get a $5 million return from that. Listen, honestly, we can't do that. We can't promise concrete numbers and results until after we run the campaigns. So because of that reason, accounting has to consider marketing an expense. And what is the first thing you do when a recession hits? You cut your expenses as much as possible. And advertising specifically and marketing in general is always the first to get the axe. Now, one column I wrote using data from the Great Recession was that companies that maintained or even increased their advertising relative to market shares and what other companies were doing, they recovered the quickest and were the best placed to take advantage of it when the recession ended. You can see the data here in this chart, but here's an example. If I'm Coke, I think Coke just announced yesterday that they're going to cut their ad spend. If I'm Coke and I cut my ad spend during a recession, then my top of mind awareness becomes less and less. Because, say I go out and I no longer see, the Coke logo on kiosks or, ads on TV. If I don't see that every day like we all do, then, Coke is going to fall out of top of mind association in my head. So when I think about buying soda in the future, Coke might not be the brand that is top of mind. It might be Pepsi, it might be somebody else. So by cutting ad spend today, you're hurting yourselves in the future. Now, obviously, we're all biased because we work in marketing. And if you always ask a marketer if a company should spend more on marketing, they will always say yes, obviously. But here is concrete information that shows the results of cutting your budget by half or even whole. It takes a long, long time to recover than if you maintain your spend relative to market share. And there's an organization in the UK called the IPA, the Institute of Practitioners in Advertising. This is an organization that certifies marketers that marketing. And America has nothing like this, actually. What you see in America is that a lot of companies have these BS certifications, and I won't name them, but all that they do is certify that you know how to use their software, which they're trying to sell you. So anyway, this is like the trade organization for advertising in the UK. And they are running this ad in the Financial Times. And I think this is a brilliant piece of copy because it distills what I just told you. When others go quiet, your voice gets louder. Freaking brilliant. Because take, for example, when I speak at an event, if I'm on stage giving a lecture and everyone else in the audience is talking, sometimes it happens, assholes. But, it makes them, they can't hear me. So the more people who talk, the less any individual person stands out. You can't hear him. But if I'm on stage and everyone is quiet, then everyone's eye is on me and everyone is listening to what I'm saying. So if everybody in your category is stopping ad spend, think of the power of you maintaining or even increasing your ad spend. You could maybe spend the same amount of money and increase your market share or share of voice from 10% to 20%. Again, these are just hypothetical numbers, but I hope you get the point. But the problem is, we know this. We know the importance of increasing your marketing spend. But it will be very, very hard in this environment to convince the CFO to agree with you. Because the CFO just sees marketing as a place to minimize and cut. But if you can think of a way to convince companies of the value of marketing and advertising specifically in this environment, then you can get a job. But I will tell you it's going to be tough. So one other prediction I had is that personally I'm skeptical of what's called brand purpose, but I think we might actually see an increase in interest in it or even a return to it. Now here is something for all of you listening to this talk. I just unveiled a new keynote speech, which is all about true brand purpose versus what I call brand hypocrisy. And here's an example. I'm sure you remember the Fearless Girl campaign, which for the record, Mark Ritson said this as well, Fearless Girl actually functions better as art rather than advertising because it is a brilliant piece of artwork, but most most people who don't work in marketing don't even remember who did the statue, State Street Bank in the US. So it fails at its first marketing goal, which is, to raise attention and get the brand remembered. But that's beside the point of my purpose here. So State Street Bank, unveiled this fearless girl statue, a confident young woman on Wall Street, standing up to a bull and, standing up to the patriarchy on Wall Street and blah, 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 blah. Well, there was a problem with it. State Street Bank settled US government charges that they paid their female executives less and penalized them for taking maternity leave. State Street Bank paid the US government $5 million to settle the charges, and they didn't even go to court to try and prove their innocence. And they did this at the exact same time as they put out Fearless Girl. I mean, can you just imagine the chutzpah? I mean, it's my favorite example. Here's another one. Gillette, I believe last year unveiled this, very well-known ad all about brand purpose and, men treating women better. But you see, Gillette has always done this, what you see, treating women like decorations and putting their brand on the derrieres of women, of models. It doesn't even stop there. Look at the product. So Gillette charges 20% more for female shaving cream rather than male shaving cream. It's the same thing. Gillette also charges 21% more for razor blades for women over razor blades for men. So Gillette, again, put out this ad, we need men to act better toward women. We need to respect women, but Gillette doesn't respect women. Oh, and here's my favorite example, Amazon and Jeff Bezos. So Jeff Bezos says he wants to use, excuse me for 1 second. So Jeff Bezos says he wants to use his money to help humanity by creating private space travel. Well, you know what? He could have used that money to help humanity today here on planet Earth, because Amazon workers are living in cars, sleeping in tents, told to urinate in public bottles, and Amazon warehouses, especially now, are more dangerous than the worst prisons. And my favorite example comes from the marketing industry itself. So last year at Cannes, I'm sure you know about it. It's like the biggest marketing conference in the world. The elite go there, and they had all these sessions about brand purpose and empowering women and helping the environment and what companies and brands can do. Well, a group called Extinction Rebellion crashed the event and tried to get conversations going about brand purpose and stopping climate change. They met with so many of the marketing elites there, trying to get them to agree to major business practices that would lessen their effect on the environment. Well, you know what? Cannes said that we want to help the world and fight climate change, and we believe in brand purpose. Well, when they were presented with an actual opportunity to help the world, do you know what happened? 14 people were arrested. So the thing about brand purpose is that, well, see, advertising is what companies say. Everything else is what companies actually do. And to see what a company truly believes, look not at what they say, but at what companies do. And I think that because of the coronavirus, this is an issue of life and death. And the planet Earth has basically shut down. And so I think because of all of this, we will see eventually when this is over, we're going to see, I hope, a return to companies helping people, governments helping people. Like, I hope, that America gets universal health care, because I have it here in Israel. And you don't know how awesome it is to have, access to cheap health care, cheap prescriptions. You go to your doctor whenever you want, you don't pay a copay. And America is the only country in the world where you don't have that. So I hope that, you will see writes off of medical debt, hope maybe even student debt. You'll see America having universal health care. You'll see brands, treating their workers well. I hope it's not a pipe dream, but here are some ways where I think companies can do that. Excuse me again. Okay, so as you may have learned, companies have stakeholders and shareholders. Stakeholders are basically people who are owners of the company, either the major owners or stockholders. I'm sorry, those are the shareholders. The stakeholders are anyone who a business affects through its operations. Could be workers, the local community, the environment, and so on. So what I think we'll see, oh, and by the way, in America, there was a major economist from the Chicago school, I think. I forgot his name. I think he was the chairman of the Fed. Anyway, so back in the 70s, this guy came up with the principle that a business's only function and goal is to maximize profits for the shareholders at whatever the cost. That's what I learned in my MBA studies in finance. It was the first thing my finance professor told me. But in Europe, you may not know this, European companies place more importance on stakeholders. That's a European mentality. And I think in the US, we will see that mentality of taking into account all the stakeholders take hold after all this is over. Because if companies will truly believe in brand purpose, they should clean their own house first. Again, real brand purpose doesn't happen in the marketing department. It happens in operations, legal, finance, HR. Here are some examples. HR. Do you pay women and men equally? Do you have zero tolerance for sexual harassment or other bad behavior? Finance. Do you pay your workers, fair wages? Operations. Look at your supply chain. Do you use slave labor or child labor? And I could go on, but every department has a role to play in a company being real and doing actual brand purpose. Again, companies shouldn't just say they believe in doing good. They should actually do real good. Here's an example in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if you know this. I actually talked about this, one of my first talks ever in England. So Mason Wartman was a guy on Wall Street. But his dream was actually just to own a local pizza joint. And he was from Philadelphia. So he moved back home to Philadelphia and he opened Rose's Fresh Pizza. And so one day, a customer asked if he could buy a slice for a homeless man outside. And he was like, yeah, sure. And he had an insight. So what he decided to do was, promote that customers could buy slices for people in need. Every one slice a customer would buy and you pay it forward to, it would be a Post-it note that he could put on the wall. And look at how many Post-it notes are on the wall. So anyone in need, anyone actually, who just come into Rose's Fresh Pizza, take Post-it notes off the wall and get free slices, no questions asked. And he didn't really promote it. He didn't want the credit. He didn't go running to the media, but his customers did. And you know what? Ellen DeGeneres asked him to appear on her show, again, a nationwide daytime TV talk show. He didn't seek this, but just by doing, some real good in the world, it actually helped his company at the same time. So he helped people and he helped his company. This might come as a surprise to a lot of people, but you can do both. You can help the world and help your company. But my favorite example is what's called a B Corp certification. If you haven't heard of it, this is a global nonprofit organization that certifies companies as doing basically good throughout all of their business functions. They go into your supply chain, they go into your operations, your advertising, how much you pay workers, how much charitable giving you do. They go into every aspect of your business. And if you satisfy all the requirements, they give you a certification and they list you in their global online directory that customers can use to determine where to spend their money. So my first thought to people is that if your company really believes in brand purpose, get a B Corp certification. It's not that expensive, but it might make you change some of your business practices. And I think that, again, when all this is over, we'll see a better world, I hope, where companies can join everyone else in truly helping the world. But here's what it comes down to. We have a lot of work ahead of us, because the way that people put it in the marketing world is that if you want to know if a company truly believes in brand purpose, look at how much tax they pay and how much effort they go into doing tax avoidance. Because taxes are actually the primary way that companies and corporations benefit the world. Because the money that they pay governments, well, the governments can use that, to pay unemployment, to pay healthcare, to pay welfare, to give student loans to people, a lot of this comes from corporate taxes. So again, if you want to see if a company truly believes in brand purpose and helping the world, look at how much tax they pay. So what can I say? It's easy to say, don't worry. I had people tell me that when I went through some hard times. But really try not to worry. You may have to live at home with your parents for a while. I know nobody wants to do that after you've been in college for 4 years. But it might be a smart idea for a short amount of time. And I'll tell you, I'm sure your parents really miss you. So again, you might have to take a job at a company you don't like. You might have to take a job you don't like that might not be in marketing. You might have to save some money, live with your family, get a lot of roommates. But unless God forbid something really bad happens, you'll be all right in the end. I can tell you, I've been there myself, and it's not easy. It's very stressful. But I hope that some of these tips I've given you will help to give you some advice on how you can promote yourself, strategically. Remember, strategy before tactics, to get a job. Again, think about, what industries will grow in this recession, and what companies specifically. Focus on selling marketing as an investment and not as a cost, and why you are important. And basically try and be as creative as possible, because in the end, the one thing that marketers do better than anyone is creativity. Finance people, not very creative. Sorry. But creativity is something we have, and we can use to help ourselves and our companies. So again, think of the insights, and it goes back, I think, to the bidet. Again, you might just see a random news article about something. Hold on, stop it. My cat is trying to eat my power cord. Hold on 1 second. Go. By the way, so I have a MacBook, and I have to actually put my power cord in a drawer and close it every time I leave home, because if my cat gets a hold of it and starts chewing the power cord, it costs $100 here to get a new one every single time. Yeah, so anyway, so basically, don't worry. Again, do diagnosis on the market and yourself. Create a guiding policy and a tactical plan to find a job, to save some money, to do everything you're going to need to do, at least in the short, maybe even the medium term. But everything should be all right, because I'm sure you've learned a lot from your professors and your program at Westchester. So I have full confidence that all of you will get through this. So don't worry. Again, if you have any questions, just my email address is everywhere. It's online. It's on my Twitter profile. It's on my website. I invite all of you to tweet me, email me, and I can help. I can give you some advice. I can do what I can. I don't mind. I welcome it. So if I can help any of you, I'm here. Just 5,000 miles away, but I'm here. So I guess, yeah, that's, my talk. This is my first commencement address ever. So
Professor Scott, first of all, your first Zoom meeting was a success, as well as your graduation speech was more than I even imagined. The time I sent you out this crazy request, would you speak to my students, because we're going through a hard time. That was a graduation speech. It was so full of great information, inspiration, and I know these students will take to the heart what you shared, and it was wonderful. And as an old guy that had a recession when I graduated, everything you said, students, listen and follow along. And as I tell you all the time, creativity is the advantage that can take you places no one else can get you to. So we wish you the best. Thank you so much. Again, thank you, Professor Scott. And we're going to sign off now, and take care, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Appreciate it.
Take care.